Picture a desolate mountain pass.
Okay.
It's the dead of night in the highland reaches of Yemen. The air is entirely still, and the darkness is so absolute, it almost feels, heavy on your shoulders.
That's a very evocative image.
Right. If you close your eyes, the tension in the atmosphere is, well, it's almost palpable. It's that precise feeling of holding your breath in a pitch-black room, waiting for a sound you know is coming, but you just have no idea from where.
Yeah, it's a remarkable, incredibly tense setting for what turns out to be a massive turning point in ancient geopolitics.
Exactly. And that is exactly the atmosphere we're stepping into for this deep dive. Today we're unpacking a fascinating stack of source materials, specifically these recently translated ancient chronicles detailing the escape of Prince Barut of Nineveh.
Which is just an incredible text.
It really is. And our mission for this deep dive is to figure out how a microscopic enemy, a sudden violent fever, essentially rewrote the fate of nations in a quiet clinic at midnight. We are looking at a story where the quiet precision of medicine violently collides with the terrifying scale of imperial strategy.
To kind of set the board for you here, the overarching narrative leading into this night involves two spies.
Right.
They have pulled off the impossible, they've infiltrated hostile territory, kidnapped Prince Marut, and are currently smuggling him through the wilderness, deliberately avoiding any border checkpoints or lantern-lit guard stations.
Because their sole objective is to deliver this royal prize to the court of King Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon.
Right, he wants the prince.
But, as we see in the text, this meticulously planned high-stakes extraction is not derailed by an ambush in the dark. It's not undone by rival soldiers or cunning trap.
No, it's derailed by biology.
Exactly. Midway through this harrowing journey, the prince suddenly falls violently ill.
And the chronicles are highly specific about his symptoms. His skin becomes burning to the touch, and he slips into a deep, alarming unconsciousness.
Which is terrifying for the spies.
Completely. His breathing grows ragged, hitching and catching in his chest. And from a purely medical standpoint, in the ancient world, an acute, sudden onset fever of this magnitude accompanied by respiratory distress is, well, it's often a death sentence. There are no antibiotics. There are no intravenous fluids.
Which creates a profound logistical nightmare for these spies. Because Nebuchadnezzar's orders are absolute. Deliver the prince alive.
Right. The king does not want a corpse.
So they're sitting in the dark, surrounded by empty plains, watching their highly valuable hostage actively deteriorate. One of the spies, who knows the territory, suggests they divert to Sana'a, which is a day's ride away.
He claims he knows a trusted horse trader there, a man named Harun who won't ask questions.
They figure they'll simply claim the prince is the son of a friend, taken ill on the road.
It is a decision born entirely of desperation.
Let me stop you there, though, because I really have to challenge the logic of the source text on this point.
Okay, go ahead.
If you put yourself in the shoes of these spies, you have just kidnapped the most high-value target in the known world. Isn't riding directly into Sana'a, which is the largest, most heavily guarded metropolis in the region, the ultimate tactical error?
I mean, on paper, yes.
It defies every rule of evasion. It feels like, stealing an incredibly recognizable armored truck and then driving it to a busy downtown mechanic just because you got a flat tire. It's tactical suicide.
Rationally, you are completely correct. It is an immense risk. But what is fascinating here is the underlying mechanism driving their decision. The source text is illustrating the sheer psychological terror King Nebuchadnezzar projects over his subjects.
Ah, I see.
The fear these spies have of arriving in Babylon with a dead body completely overrides their fear of being caught by the guards in Sana'a.
So they are calculating that the wrath of their king, 1,000 miles away, is more immediate and terrifying than the armed soldiers right outside the city gates.
Precisely. It is the ultimate manifestation of Nebuchadnezzar's imperial power. His men are more afraid of failing him than they are of anything else in the physical world. Their terror literally forces their hand.
That is a chilling piece of human psychology.
It really is.
So they make the ride. They arrive in Sana'a at night. The city is thick with unbroken darkness, shuttered shops, and just the faint tremor of candlelight. They find Harun the horse trader, wake him up, and feed him their lie.
And Harun feels the boy's dangerously high fever and recognizes that this requires specialized intervention.
Right. He tells him he knows exactly one man who can help. A physician named Zayn.
We should establish who Zayn is in the context of the city, too. He is not a street healer. He is extraordinarily skilled and exclusively serves the nobility.
But Harun offers to fetch him by leveraging a very old personal friendship, insisting to the spies that Zayn will come if he asks.
Which is how a desperate midnight sprint through the quiet streets of Santa inadvertently brings these spies face to face with the one man who can completely unravel their entire plot.
Because Zayn, as the chronicles reveal, is not just a doctor.
Right. He is deeply embedded in the very political currents these spies are attempting to navigate. The text notes that when Harun knocks on his door, Zayn is only at his private residence briefly.
Why was he there?
He had stopped there to check for secret messages from his political allies, Yurka and Ashur, before returning to his duties at the royal palace.
Wow. So Harun begs Zayn to come, pleading that his own reputation is at stake. Zayn values the friendship and agrees, walking back to Harun's mansion. And if you are listening to this, picture this dimly lit room.
It's a very tense setup.
Zayn enters. He sees the two rugged, road-weary men sitting on a rug. He leans forward to examine the unconscious boy, and in that quiet, suffocating moment, Zayn recognizes the face of Prince Marut of Nineveh.
It is a moment of pure internalized shock.
I mean, how does he not immediately give himself away? The text says he maintains total neutrality, but the sheer mental calculus required there is staggering.
Absolutely staggering.
It's like watching a chess grandmaster playing a blindfolded game. He has to instantly map out the entire board, who these men are, where the prince's royal guards went, how the boy was taken, all based purely on the move presented by this sudden illness, all while checking a pulse.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it. Ancient physicians commanded a near mystical respect, and Zayn weaponizes that authority instantly.
Right, because the spies are on edge.
Oh, extremely. And one of them even puts on an elaborate performance. He adopts the raw, hollow look of a grieving father, begging Zayn to save his quote-unquote son. The spy says he wishes he could take the boy's place.
And the text explicitly notes that Zayn feels a dark amusement at the performance.
Yes.
He knows he's being lied to by dangerous armed men. But he doesn't call the guards. He doesn't confront them. He controls the room through sheer medical dominance.
He manipulates them by diagnosing the boy with a severe inflammation of the brain. He tells them the illness is neither slow nor gentle, and that the house lacks the precise instruments required to save him.
If I'm understanding the mechanics of the ancient text correctly, Zayn is using the idea of brain inflammation, not just as a medical diagnosis, but as a tactical crowbar to pry these spies out of their safe house.
Exactly that. He warns them that if they don't move the prince to his private clinic within the hour, the boy will die. By terrifying the spies with an aggressively dire medical prognosis, he forces them to move the prince into his own territory.
He isolates the enemy.
Right, extracting them from Harun's mansion without raising a single alarm in the city.
So they transport the prince to the clinic. Zayn gives the boy a potent pill that he knows will artificially wake him in exactly 1 hour.
And then Zayn plays the role of the harmless, preoccupied doctor flawlessly.
He tells the exhausted skies to sleep in the adjoining room, assuring them the boy will rest quietly through the night. The spies, who are just worn down to the bone by the road and the stress, buy the act completely.
Within minutes, they're snoring through the thin wall.
And the moment that door closes, the atmosphere in the clinic shifts entirely. Zayn's role transitions in the blink of an eye.
He is no longer a healer assessing a fever. He becomes the sole arbiter of life and death.
The prince wakes up as planned. Zayn tells him, quietly, that he is safe by the grace of the great creator. But Zayn immediately faces a terrifying reality. He knows these men are Nebuchadnezzar's agents.
And he knows he cannot just drug them and leave them tied up in an alley.
Right, why not?
Because in ancient shadow wars, loose ends are fatal. If they wake up, they will ask questions, word will spread, Harun the horse trader will talk.
And eventually, that information will reach King Hammurabi of Yemen.
Exactly, and the entire secret network Zayn is building will be exposed.
So a permanent resolution is required. The text describes Zayn walking over to a small locked cabinet. He takes out a slender vial. The liquid inside is perfectly clear.
It's very unassuming.
Very. We are told that a single drop of this substance is enough to stop the heart of a large animal in moments. Zayn walks into the room where the spies are sleeping with their mouths open, and without a second of hesitation, he lets one drop fall into each of their throats.
The chronicles note that the snoring ceases almost instantly. There is a brief, almost imperceptible shudder in their bodies, and then total stillness.
I have to ask about the mechanics of this. Dropping a clear liquid into someone's throat to induce instant death without waking them up? What are we looking at pharmacologically?
Based on descriptions of ancient toxins, this was likely a highly concentrated neurotoxin. perhaps derived from a specific plant or venom native to the region, designed to instantly shut down the central nervous system.
So it's fast.
Incredibly fast. It paralyzes the heart muscle before the brain can even register the sensation of choking or pain.
Which brings up a chilling question. Is Zayn a physician or a trained assassin?
It blurs the line entirely.
There's a profound irony here. He is taking his intimate, exhaustive knowledge of the human body and applying it not to heal, but to execute an utterly untraceable, silent murder.
The text treats it with a brutal pragmatism. Zayn's swift action is fundamentally about geopolitical containment. Excising these two men from the board is no different to him than a surgeon excising a diseased organ.
It's a dark way to look at it, but it makes sense.
If he leaves them alive, he exposes his own king and his entire nation to Nebuchadnezzar's wrath prematurely.
And he finishes the operation with that same cold precision. Working alone in the moonless dark, he loads the bodies onto a horse, he navigates the deserted back streets of Sepah, and takes them far out beyond the city's edge.
To bury them.
Right. In the shadow of a jagged hill, he digs a deep trench, buries them, and meticulously smooths the earth so it looks completely untouched. The immediate physical threat is buried in the dirt.
But the true weight of the war is brought directly to his doorstep the moment he returns.
Yes. He gets back to the clinic, he sits down with the exhausted prince, and he is just starting to explain the broader political currents when there is a sharp knock at the door.
Zayn instinctively reaches for a blade.
But it's his ally, Yurka. Yurka steps inside, sees the prince sitting there, and is profoundly shocked and intensely relieved. They had assumed the boy was dead.
Yurka's reaction in the text highlights the sheer magnitude of the geopolitical shift that has just occurred. He points out that the prince's escape, alongside their other ally Ashur, shatters Nebuchadnezzar's aura of invincibility.
It changes the whole narrative.
Right. It drags the Babylonian king's royal pride through the dust for the entire region to see.
And this is where the narrative pulls back the curtain on the grand strategy. Zayn reveals a massive plot twist to Yurka.
Oh, this is a great moment.
He tells him that everything has proceeded better than they could have possibly hoped. Because Zayn is no longer just a wealthy, private physician. He reveals that he has officially become the Minister of the Royal Guard to King Hammurabi.
Which is a staggering elevation in power and access. It positions Zayn at the very right hand of the military apparatus in Yemen.
Wow.
And it allows him to finally lay out the master plan they have been quietly constructing.
It is a strategy of breathtaking audacity. Zayn explains that Hammurabi has a deep network of spies currently embedded in Babylon. They are silently tracking the movement of Nebuchadnezzar's vast forces.
Waiting for the right moment.
Exactly. The plan is to wait for the precise moment Nebuchadnezzar launches his inevitable retaliatory invasion of Yemen. While that massive Babylonian army is occupied fighting in the south, Ashur will lead secret loyalist divisions to ignite a general uprising in the city of Nineveh.
Let's break down why that is so devastating. Geographically, it forces Nebuchadnezzar into a tactical nightmare. He will have extended his supply lines hundreds of miles south into Yemen, only to have a massive rebellion erupt in his own territory to the north.
He will have to split his forces to fight a two-front war.
Exactly.
It is the ultimate chess sacrifice. They are effectively using an entire country, Yemen, as bait, just to steal back a single city, Nineveh, while the king has his back turned.
And notice the sophisticated psychological warfare embedded in this strategy. They aren't just fighting Nebuchadnezzar's soldiers.
What do you mean?
They are weaponizing Nebuchadnezzar's grief and his public humiliation. They know he is entirely consumed by the flight of the prince. They are betting that his emotional volatility, his absolute frantic need to restore his image of absolute power, will make his military movements highly predictable.
They are using his own perceived invincibility against him.
Yes.
But as flawless as grand strategy looks when you are whispering it over a map in a dimly lit room, reality has a way of intruding. Yurka listens to this brilliant, sweeping plan and immediately introduces a fatal flaw.
He brings up the cold logistics of rebellion.
Yeah.
Yurka points out that their plan relies entirely on timing.
Right.
If Nebuchadnezzar delays his campaign against Yemen, the loyalist force they are secretly maintaining will go completely bankrupt.
Let's talk about the burn rate of an ancient secret army, because the immense cost of feeding, arming, and paying thousands of standing troops indefinitely is unsustainable for a shadow network.
Absolutely.
If they don't launch the war soon, they will run out of resources before a single sword is drawn.
This is a crucial historical insight that the source text provides. We tend to romanticize rebellions in history. We picture impassioned speeches, raised flags, and dramatic battlefield charges.
Of course.
But this moment grounds the epic narrative in stark economic reality. Rebellions are not won by ideology alone. They are won by mastering supply chains, shifting financial liabilities, and balancing ledgers. A starving army will not march, no matter how righteous the cause.
So how does Zayn solve this impossible logistical nightmare? With the exact same swift, pragmatic thinking he used on the spies in the clinic. He proposes a completely new remedy.
Right.
He tells Yurka he will go to King Hammurabi directly and asks to integrate their secret loyalist units into the official ranks of the Royal Army of Yemen.
Which is a brilliant maneuver.
Mm.
By doing this, Zayn shifts the entire financial burden, the provisions, the pay, the weapon maintenance from their secret dwindling network directly onto the massive royal treasury of Yemen.
It is essentially a hostile corporate merger, but applied to ancient warfare.
That's a perfect way to put it.
When Yurka asks if Hammurabi would actually agree to shoulder that massive sudden cost, Zayn argues that the logic is undeniable. He says ultimately these are the very men who will be fighting by the king's side when Babylon attacks. He tells Yurka their strength is his strength.
It shows how deeply Zayn understands leverage. He isn't walking into the palace asking for a favor. He is offering Hammurabi a fully trained, augmented military force exactly when the king is going to need it most.
Yurka agrees the logic is sound. And so Zayn decides they cannot wait for morning. They must go to the king immediately. The three of them, Zayn, Yurka, and the newly recovered Prince Baruth, step out of the clinic.
Back into the darkness.
Under the cover of darkness, they move with quiet, intentional purpose through the night, heading toward the towering silhouettes of the royal palace.
It is a phenomenal sequence of events to analyze.
When you step back and look at the pacing of this single night, it is genuinely breathtaking. It starts with a ragged, hitching fever in a desolate mountain pass. It shifts inward to a terrifyingly silent execution in a quiet clinic. And it expands outward again, ending with a strategic march toward a king's palace, carrying the blueprints for a war that will tear empires apart.
And all of it hinges on the actions of one man who possessed the rare ability to know exactly when to heal and exactly when to kill.
Which brings us back to that dark room we started in, and the tension of holding your breath in the quiet. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Oh, all right.
Consider the mindset of King Nebuchadnezzar, sitting miles and miles away in the opulence of Babylon. He is a man who firmly believes his power is absolute, his reach inescapable, his armies unstoppable.
Unconquerable.
Yeah. But what happens to the psychology of a self-proclaimed invincible ruler when his empire inevitably begins to crack? Not under the crushing weight of an opposing army, but because of a quiet physician armed with nothing but a vial of clear liquid and a profound, devastating understanding of human nature.
It's a haunting thought.
Thank you for joining us in the shadows for this deep dive.